to God. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to tonight's June 10th Board of Education meeting. We'll start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'd please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this evening is one of our favorite meetings of the year. This is the meeting where we get to recognize Teacher of the Year, Paraprofessional of the Year, and many, many high school recognition awards. So as always, we look forward to this evening, and at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Benigni to start off the evening. Brian, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Tenza, and welcome to tonight's board meeting. The first award I'd like to present this evening is our Teacher of the Year. Each year, we have a Teacher of the Year from each building. Each building Teacher of the Year then meets with former Teachers of the Year in a committee, and we select a Teacher of the Year to represent Berlin Public Schools. This year, our Teacher of the Year is Adam Leonard. Adam Leonard? I know Adam was downstairs at the retiree reception, so I'm not sure if he made his way up yet, but let me just read a few words about Adam. Adam's been teaching in the Berlin Public Schools for 15 years. He is dedicated. He's continued growth as an educator. As an example of his pedagogy, Adam instituted the practice of reverse report cards to give his students an opportunity to grade him. He seeks out their opinions about what is working and what is not working in his classroom. He solicits their feedback to make his teaching even better. On the doors of his classroom, his teaching oath is posted. Among other ideas, the document states, "As your teacher, I promise to be open to hear your ideas about how I can improve the class, to show my excitement for the material." One student commented he actually cares about what he is teaching and how he is teaching it. It's fun to be in his class. I'd like to congratulate Adam Leonard. If I could ask Linda Holian, Director of People Services, to come forward, please.
Good evening. Each year we ask the staff district-wide to select a paraprofessional that they think is deserving of the award to be Paraprofessional of the Year. Please join me in congratulating Donna Van Dam from Emma Hart Willard School as Berlin's Paraprofessional of the Year. Donna has been a paraprofessional in Berlin for the past 14 years. Her endless dedication to her students makes an impact each and every day. Donna makes every student feel accepted and special. She has a wonderful rapport with all students and works hard to guide and instruct them. She's kind, passionate, and empathetic. She makes sure all students know that they can be successful and that they are important. She goes out of her way every day to make sure all her students are succeeding and feel accomplished. Everyone really enjoys working with Donna. Congratulations, Donna.
Next, I'd like to congratulate the Berlin High School valedictorian, Madison Monroe. Is Madison here? If you could come forward, Madison. As Madison's walking up, I'd like to say a few words. When asked about Madison Monroe, her teachers consistently state she is one of the best students they've ever taught because Madison approaches every subject working to truly understand how and why things work, and she is willing to put in long hours of studying and research. Her intellectual curiosity. She is able to work well independently with little direction, but she is also able to work cooperatively in groups during which she often takes on leadership roles because of her organization skills, her analytical mind, which she applies to both humanities and STEM classes. It is no wonder that she is ranked first in her class and has been a recipient of many accolades, including AP Computer Science Award, AP Computer Science Principals Award, Honors Pre-Calculus Award, APA Academic Achievement in Psychology Award, Yale Book Award, RIT Computing Medal Award, and C. Howard Gooding Award, just to name a few. Madison is so much more than her academics. Madison has selected to participate in the competitive Capital Region Interdistrict Leadership Academy, during which she attended a 7-day outward-bound experience with 25 other students. Madison now meets regularly with this group of students to develop community service projects to benefit the cities of Hartford and New Britain. She is also a member of various clubs such as Upbeat Peer Leadership Program, DECA, Interact, for which she was awarded the Distinguished Service Hour citation. At the same time, Madison is a 3-sport athlete in cross-country, indoor track, and outdoor track. She holds school records in indoor track, distance medley relay, and outdoor track 4x4, 1600. And she has been named all-conference. I'm not tired yet, don't worry. This is great. Madison makes deliberate choices on how to balance all of her endeavors. Anything she commits, she puts forth her best effort and creates exemplary product. Because of this, she consistently exceeds expectation. Madison will be attending Hamilton College in the fall. Madison, congratulations. Fantastic. Next, if I could have our salutatorian, Alexander Halkias, come forward. Throughout his high school career, Alex has taken the most rigorous coursework available in English, math, and social studies, and he has augmented his schedule with advanced and honors coursework in all other subject areas. Because of his interest in pursuing a career in business, Alex has taken a variety of business courses, some of which have earned him college credit. He pursued an independent study in AP macroeconomics this year. Alex attributes his academic success to his time management skills. Alex is involved in a variety of activities that demand his time and attention, yet he is able to effectively balance all of his commitments. One such example that highlights his dedication occurred when the football team was going to have its playoff game on a Tuesday night. Alex went to his teachers to get the work ahead of time so that he could complete it early. That night, he was prepared not only for a game, but also the quizzes that he would take the next day. In addition to being a leader in academics, Alex is also a leader in his co-curricular activities. His strength of character, humble personality, and dependability enable him to be well-liked and well-respected by all social circles. For example, he was elected captain of the football team as a junior because he leads by example, and also proactively addresses concerns and motivates his teammates in ways where all parties can find a common ground. Alex is a 3-sport athlete, lettering in football, basketball, and track, in which he holds the school record in the 200-meter dash. He also is president of the National Honor Society, the Board of Education student representative, which we thank you for, Alex, and a member of the DECA and political clubs. Alex is the complete package. He is kind, humble, he is talented, hardworking, athlete, and he's bright and motivated student. We are proud to recognize him in the class of 2019 salutatorian. Alex will be attending Carnegie Mellon University next year. Congratulations, Alex. Alex, if you'd like to just stay up here, and if I could have Madison come back up, please. The Connecticut Association of Schools also provides 2 awards called the Cass Scholar Athletes. Madison and Alex were also awarded these awards this year. This award recognizes 2 high school seniors from each member of the high school whose academic and athletic careers have been exemplary. Those personal standards of achievements are the model for others to follow. They possess high levels of integrity, self-discipline, and courage. In addition to what you just heard about Madison and Alex, the valedictorian and salutatorian, the class of 2019, they are both 3-season athletes. Madison has been a member of indoor track, outdoor track, and cross country, and Alex participated in football, basketball, and outdoor track. Congratulations to both of you. The next award is the Cass Governor's Scholar Award. If Audrey Feldman can come up. The Governor's Scholars Program recognizes academically talented high school students in schools throughout the state. Principals who are members of the Connecticut Association of Schools are given the opportunity to nominate one junior who ranks in the top 5% of their class. Professional educators from throughout Connecticut judge completed applications and assign a composite score to each student's PSAT or SAT scores and student essay. A select group of top students are chosen as Governor's Scholars and receive recognition as well as information on participation in courses at various Connecticut colleges and universities. Only 22 juniors throughout the state were selected in 2019. Sitting on the sidelines has never been suited for Audrey. Whether it is DECA, Model UN, or varsity tennis team, leadership in her church, or volunteering in the community, she is passionate and never does anything halfway. That is why this recognition means so much to her. It is a culmination of years of dedication, both inside and outside of the classroom. Audrey states, "I could never have gotten this far without my friends, family, and teachers, who helped me foster my love of learning. I could never thank you enough." Additionally, Audrey is a volunteer tutor, a summertime aide at the library, and a volunteer girls' camp counselor. When not running between school activities, she loves playing piano, reading, and exploring the outdoors. In the future, she hopes to study business and economics. Her desire to learn has translated into the passion for teaching, and she would love to teach and research at the collegiate level. Congratulations, Audrey. Next, we have the Cass Arts Award. If I could have Megan Fox and Benjamin Labadia come up. The Cass Arts Awards annually honor two outstanding seniors from each member of the school who excel in the performing or visual arts. While excelling in the performing and visual arts is of primary importance, scholarship and leadership are also supporting criteria. First, for Megan, in the performing arts, talented, hardworking, creative, smart are just a few words that can be used to describe Megan Fox. She's a young lady who has overcome obstacles in her younger years that have made her into the person she is today. She gives her all to each thing she takes on, which will serve her well both in college and beyond, especially in the field of acting, which she is looking to pursue. Megan is very creative, and this creativity comes out in all that she does: acting, drawing, pottery. Megan brings her own spin to her projects. She is also highly involved in the high school and surrounding communities. Every year she has had a role, usually a leading role, in the school play. She has been a member of the drama club, the cabaret, and the improv team, for which she is team captain. As the captain of the color guard and a member of the Upbeat. Further, Megan is taking courses in New York for acting and singing to be the best she can in what she hopes will be her field of study. Megan will be attending Mohlberg University in the fall. Congratulations, Megan. In the visual arts, Benjamin Labadia. Talented, intelligent, and driven are just a few words used to describe Ben Labadia. Ben has worked hard to challenge himself and to get involved in a way he can. He has shown he manages his time well with all he's involved and persists even when things are not easy. Ben's positive attitude and determination will take him far. Ben has explored the arts in high school and found success. He has been able to further expand his talent art to take our digital media and movie making class. Since that is his area he wants to pursue in college. He is talented in both performing arts and studio arts. He has started his own YouTube channel and written short films where he is gaining notoriety from companies. Ben intends to further his education to become a director, but plans on writing scripts and acting as well. Ben will be attending Quinnipiac College in the fall. Congratulations, Ben. If I could ask Eileen Eustace, principal of Berlin High School, to come forward and present some additional awards.
Good evening, everyone. Right now, we'd like to recognize our students that participated in All-State for choir and band. In terms of, with regard to music, they perform at a variety of levels, and it's a rigorous adjudication in order to earn these achievements. So we would like to congratulate for All-State Chorus, Tori Cascone, Katie Richette, and Dawson Trotman. And for All-State Band, we would like to congratulate Clemens Henning. Come on down, Clemens. Next, we have the CABE Student Leadership Awards. The CABE Student Leadership Awards program is designed to honor Connecticut high school and middle school students who exhibit exemplary leadership skills. 2 students from each member school are eligible. So for Berlin High School, we'd like to ask Julia Ladd and Christian Damiana to come on down. We'd like to say a few words. Julia is an Ideal Award winner of the CABE Student Leadership Award. She is a leader in the classroom, assisting others where and when needed. She will take the reins, such as in a group, and include everyone. Julia has been involved in many extracurricular activities, both in and out of the school community. She is involved in the Upbeat program, where she has taken on the role of leader of the Philanthropy House. During her summer break, she hit the ground running so the house would be prepared during the year for all of their community projects. She is also involved with the Interact Club and DECA Club. Further, Julia has been a member of the cross-country team and softball team all 4 years, notably being a great team player and leader to her teammates. Another quality that Julia embodies is her ability to take part in extracurriculars, even when it is not the easiest thing for her. She has the ability to work hard and be there to cheer others on, and she always wants the best for others. And that includes those that and she includes others, especially those that may not always be included in all the facets of her life, which makes her an ideal leader. Lastly, Julia showed her leadership qualities when she coached basketball in the past. She leads in a way that everyone can feel included. Julia will be attending Stonehill College next year. Congratulations, Julia. Next, we have Christian Damiana. Christian's determination and strong aptitude for learning are some of his greatest assets. What makes Christian a stellar student and leader and individual is his ability to eloquently and persuasively articulate his thoughts about contemporary and historical issues. He regularly uses historical thinking skills and his knowledge of historical events to evaluate social norms, political theories, economic policies, and foreign entanglements. He does not like to be restricted or restrained to one style or method of communication. In addition to his accomplishments in the classroom, Christian works diligently in other aspects of the BHS community. He is an active member and leader of Youth in Government, Debate Club, Stage Crew. He is president of Student Council and assists those in need of technical support as a tech expert. Christian is also a coordinator of the Upbeat Peer Leadership Program, in which he is responsible for 3 service groups. In the last 3 years, Christian has completed over 250 community service hours, and he will be attending American University in the fall. Congratulations, Christian.
In the absence of Principal Urso, who is preparing for the McGee 50th year of celebration tonight, I'd like to have Assistant Principal Mrs. Gish and Assistant Principal Mr. Cheverini come on up to present the Cass Middle School Award.
So good evening, everyone. If we can have Meredith Gendro and Molly Sevzniak come on up. Meredith Gendro is a very kind person to everyone she meets. She sincerely cares about other people, demonstrates empathy, and is a wonderful support system to her peers. She also sets a good example through her strong work ethic that she displays in the classroom. She works hard, takes risks, advocates for herself, and challenges herself. But Meredith's talents far reach beyond the classroom. She is a true example of what you want a friend and student to be. Meredith consistently thinks of others before thinking of herself. Congratulations, Meredith.
Molly's teachers describe her as a wonderful young lady and an asset to any class. She is helpful, kind, and compassionate. Molly is always striving to do her best, and she takes her job at school very seriously, while encouraging others to do the same. Molly loves learning and is excited about opportunities where she can gain more knowledge. As a student, she is always prepared, participates, and gives her best every class, every day. It is truly a pleasure to have Molly as a student.
We have a few more recognitions for this evening. We would like to recognize our class of 2019 officers from Berlin High School. First, we have President Gabriela Padavina, Vice Presidents Mark Bednarzik and Madison Monroe, Secretary AJ Khan, Treasurer James Greco, and Social Chair Aaron Ferris. Come on down. Next, we would like to recognize our student government officers for 2019. First, we have President Christian Damiana, Vice President Maya Patel, Secretary Emily Rutledge, and Treasurer Jenna Smalley. And next, we'd like to recognize our National Honor Society officers for 2019. We have President Alexander Helkias, Vice President Alexa Monroe, Secretary Connor Reck, and Treasurer Alina Whiteside. Now I would like to introduce Mrs. Evelisa Mayette to announce our capstone exemplars.
Good evening. Thank you so much. So we have some exemplars. If I could have all the students come on down now, I think it'll be easier as we're going through. Come on over here. Colin, why don't you come this way? So I will introduce them. They will give you their topic. They will give you their mode of presentation. They will give you why they chose the topic. And if you want to give us some key takeaways as well. Colin Asklar.
Hi. My capstone presentation was Community Development, a skate park in Berlin. I did a presentation, and I chose this because I'm an active BMX biker. I work at Cutting Edge, a skateboard shop. This is my passion for what I do on my free time. I went and I talked with the town the town manager, the assistant to the town manager, and the director of facilities. And my takeaway was that there could be a skate park possibly in Berlin, and I'm going to try and see if I could pursue that this summer. Thank you.
Mackenzie Sear could not be with us tonight, but her topic was the increase of safety standards in the sports organizations to protect young athletes from sexual abuse. Next up, we have Christian Damiana.
I researched how to support safe and healthy communities by lowering drug abuse among youth in Berlin. So I did this by collaborating with the Berlin Upbeat program with Berlin Social Services and Jamie Miller to find different ways to work with students in order to implement more effective resistance education at the middle school through lessons in 8th grade health classes and through the identification and mentoring of at-risk students.
Next up, we have McKenna Evans.
My capstone project was on female entrepreneurship, and I did this through a presentation style mode of presentation. And the reason I picked this was because I really want to go into business in my future, and I've started my own business. It's a scrunchie business where I make and sell scrunchies that I've been doing for at least 6 months now, and really wanted to further that business and see how I could do that and see what other female entrepreneurs do.
Next up, we have Alexander Halkias.
So I did my capstone on behavioral economics, and I'm sure that means nothing to you guys. So basically what it is, it's the intersection between psychology and economics, and I chose it for a couple of reasons. Mainly because I want to go into economics next year. 2, because I had a good background on the topic through all the classes business classes that I'm taking here in BHS. And 3, because I independently studied microeconomics, so I decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and kind of research a little bit about economics during my capstone, so it helped. So the mentor I had was actually a professor at the school I'm attending next year. His name was George Lowenstein, so I reached out to him, and he kind of walked me through my project a little bit, and it was included in my TED Talk, which was the mode of presentation that I used. So it's a great project. I liked it.
Next up, we have Maisie Hayes.
I did a slides presentation on the origin and influence of paranormal belief. I myself have considered myself a skeptic, and I wanted to see not only where this belief comes from, but how it affects us in our daily lives.
Benjamin Labadia.
I did my project on how film affects the subconscious, and like they said, I want to be a filmmaker, so I wanted to know how audiences, how my movies could affect audiences physically, mentally, and emotionally, so I decided to explore that through a documentary and learn about it that way.
Emily Lee.
So I did my project on effects of household pollution on the environment, and I created and designed my own eco-friendly home. And I did this because air pollution is such a huge problem, but not many people are informed or really aware of it. So I really wanted to help raise some awareness, and I did this through a website.
Zanae Lewis.
So my capstone project was about the positive effects of hip hop. growing up in this genre. I really loved it, and I seen how certain audiences had took it and put it in a negative light. So I spoke to different hip hop historians and different radio hosts on how to go about presenting that to my my audience, and talking about the activism and charity and all the different ways that hip hop does give back.
Michaela Mancini.
I did my presentation on how media bias impacts politics today. I just decided to do this topic because I think it's a really pressing issue, not only in our town, but in our society. And I think calling attention to it not only allows people to become more educated on something they may not see in their day-to-day life, but also take action and improve upon it. And I did that through a TED Talk.
Gabby Padavina.
So I did my capstone on passion into action and how to give back to your community. I've been involved in Interact and Upbeat for the past 4 years, so community service has been a huge part of my high school experience. And what I've noticed amongst a lot of high school students is that a lot of students are giving back for the wrong reasons. So through surveys and conducting my own community service project with the help of Connecticut Children's Medical Center, I really looked into why we give back and how we need to start giving back with a passion and out of the goodness of our hearts. So.
Courtney Trin.
For my capstone project, I did a documentary on the effects of the Vietnam War on Amerasian children, and I chose this topic because my mom is the daughter of an American soldier, and she was born in Vietnam, and her sister still lives there, so it's kind of like family history, and I found that there was a lot more children who are like her, so.
Daniel Velius is not here. His topic was the impact of correctly training the mind for athletic performance. Next, you have Abby Wendehack.
Hi, everyone. I did my capstone presentation on how colors impact the mood and recovery of hospital patients. I chose this topic because when I went to visit my grandfather in the hospital about a year ago. Immediately when I walked into his room, it was extremely depressing. There was very little light in the room. There was no entertainment, and all of the walls were completely white. So I wanted to do this project to stimulate awareness about the importance of the color of hospital rooms and how it can positively impact hospital patients. Now, I did this presentation through the mode of a Google Slides presentation, as well as an experience that I paired with the Hospital for Special Care in New Britain, and I made through the Red Cross Club here at Berlin High School decoration kits for about 20 different patients in the pediatric unit at Hospital for Special Care.
And finally, Olivia Wozdenko.
I did my topic on the presence of gender stereotypes in film and television. I chose this because I want to pursue a career in film and television, and I also thought it was a very relevant topic in today's society. And my style of presentation was just a slideshow presentation.
We have one more award to our students to recognize tonight. So if I could, our board chair, Matt Tenza.
First off, congratulations to all those that have been recognized tonight. For those of you that aren't students of BHS and McGee, you can see we have a very talented group of students with us, and I look forward to shaking your hand on Sunday as you cross the stage floor at Welty Hall. The last recognition we have tonight is actually a thank you to our BOE student representatives. 3 years ago, the Board of Education elected to add student representatives to the Board of Education to get the students' insight into many of the topics that we're discussing, and also so that we are more closely in tune to what's happening at the high school. And this year, I'm very happy to recognize Alex Halkias and Jenna Smalley for their enthusiasm, their insightful reports about what's going on at the high school, and also their intuitiveness into some of the topics that we've discussed. So if you guys would come on up, I'd like to give you a gift as thanks. With that, we'll take a brief recess so that those that are studying for exams or anything like that can head on out, and also so the Board of Education members can congratulate the award recipients, where we can We're going to wait for Rich to come back, but... Okay. We will now continue on with our meeting. It's much quieter in here. First up, we'll have committee reports. We'll hear the report from the student representatives first.
So last year was Berlin's first year participating in the statewide Halo Awards, and there were 2 wins. Joey Kalinsky, Jenny Lynn, and Ashani Patel won a Halo Award for Best Scenic Design for the fall play, and Dawson Trotman won Best Performance by a Supporting Actor in Shrek.
So take it as this is the last time I'll ever speak in one of these meetings. I just want to thank you guys for welcoming me into your group for the past 2 years. I've had a blast. Sorry I couldn't make all the meetings, but it's been kind of a hectic 2 years. The last things I want to report on is, so we graduate on Sunday, and sports, pretty much everyone's done except for girls track, who's competing at nationals while we're graduating. So that's all I got.
Again, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jenna. Alex, we'll miss you. You've been here for 2 years, and we wish you the very best next year at school. Jenna, you become the student representative leader, and we look forward to working with you again next year and with whoever the junior representative will be. So thank you very much. I know that you guys have exams, so the board happily excuses you to go do some studying. Thank you very much. Next, we have committee reports. The first is Educational Resource Committee. Adam Selena is not here tonight, so I will briefly summarize a meeting we held on Friday morning at 8:30. Most of it was done via telephone. And the focus of that conversation was to discuss the use of I want to call it the 1% account, but that's not the right term. The reoccurring account. We do have some money left over at the end of this year. Portion of that is because we are paying ESS out of next year's budget per the audit requirements that we've heard both from the Board of Finance and numerous other locations. Again, from the board perspective, I'll reiterate that if someone from the town or the auditing department can provide us with documentation that clearly allows us to pay for something like ESS out of the previous year's funds, that would be something we would consider, but not necessarily with ESS, but with any program of that type. This year we were specifically told that it is not proper audit procedure, which is why ESS is now in the operating budget. We are happy that that's where it resides, but it's been obviously a long time coming that way. We also talked about capital improvements that the Board of Education has agreed to do in lieu of or not having any capital assigned to the Board of Education this year. And those items are the BLAST program, that classroom that goes to McGee Middle School that needs to be done. If you remember, we had an estimate of about $50,000 to have that renovated, and when final estimates came in, it's at $197,000. We have $133,000 from leftover projects that have been done through the school system that were found by the town manager, and the balance of that will be made up with some of the dollars left over for this year. We also agreed as part of the budget process to do the elementary school telephones. That's estimated at $95,000. Again, capital. And Brian, what's the gym floors and elementary school cameras and systems, and also McGee cameras and video systems. Both of those are part of the security program and will be done with some of the end-of-the-year funds. I would say that we spoke for roughly 45 minutes, Carrie, an hour maybe.
Yeah, 45 minutes.
And that's what we really talked about with the ERC. Most of the conversations surrounded what we would be putting into the revolving fund, which will be the blast classroom, the McGee paint, elementary's gym floors, phone system's all set, right? Oh, and the security equipment for the security guards. We agreed to take that expense on at the end of the budget process. So that's the summary of the Ed Resources Committee. Any questions on that at this point? Okay, seeing none. Earlier today, we had an ad hoc committee for policy and review revision. I'm going to let Brian summarize what we went over. Surprise.
That's fine.
And we will have a first reading on this policy later this evening. So
at the 3 elementary schools, we have book vending machines. And in obtaining those book vending machines, you need to stock the machines with books. And so the thought was that we would look into sponsorship for the books in the vending machines. So there would be no cost to the district. And looking at our sponsorship, we needed, our district did not have a policy regarding sponsorship in any way. So we had a policy, potential policy drafted to look at sponsorship. Now this policy expands further than just the book machines, but at this point, we're looking at the book machines as a sponsorship where we would allow organizations or companies to sponsor the purchase of various books, and for that, purchasing the books, we allow them to put their advertisement, their logo, or their name of their company, you know, proudly purchased by or whatever on the book, as well as we had different tiers of sponsorship. So the policy goes further than the book machine, but at this point, we needed the policy with the regulations on how the book machines would be, who we would allow, and what would be allowed as sponsorship for the book. So that policy allows us to do that, as well as begins to start looking at other areas where we might entertain sponsorship. And one of those areas we spoke of was the Washington, D.C. trip, which students in 8th grade have gone on. It's been a tradition here in Berlin for probably over 30 years, and the price of that trip keeps on increasing yearly. But that's the start of it, but as we look at new ventures in sponsorship, there'll be new regulations for each of those ventures that will come to the board that will be supported underneath this new policy. So I hope that summarizes what the discussion was.
Yep. Again, we have an agenda item that addresses first reading later on this evening. Next up, we have correspondence to the board. Does anybody have? Julia?
Earlier today, I, as well as a few other board members, received an email from Melissa Cohen. She lives in Berlin, 90 Patrick Drive, Berlin, Connecticut, in regards to the elementary school counselor that is being cut, Ms. Kluge. And I'll just give a few highlights from her email rather than sharing the entire email. She quotes, "Employing good school counselors to support our students is the strongest way of supporting our mental health of our children." She expressed the importance of school counselors at all grade levels, not just the upper school.
and how school counselors wear many hats to be able to support the classroom teachers, such as work with 504 plans, behavioral needs, social emotional needs. Ms. Cohen also stated that classroom teachers simply cannot manage all the social emotional needs of our children in addition to meeting the academic needs of the classroom. And to conclude, Ms. Cohen wrote, please cut technology, cut high-level administrators, have parents pay extra for sports, but please do not cut the one elementary school counselor. It continues on a little bit more about how Ms. Kluge has been a godsend for her son, and she's nervous about his transition because of the elimination of this position. And she thanked us as a board for always considering what is in the best interest of our children. And she thanks the board for our hard work. So I just wanted to share that out. So if you receive that, and I will be in touch with her and let her know that I shared that.
Thank you, Julia. Is there any other correspondence to the board? Brian?
No correspondence this
Nothing?
evening.
Okay. So before proceeding, I think it's important that I comment that the Board of Education has heard loud and clear the importance of the positions that have been discussed for reductions due to the budget process. With that said, I have asked the superintendent on behalf of the Board of Education to look at where we are following the hiring of all positions here in town that need to be filled, and also to evaluate where our choice funding will come in and what the needs of the district are, to see if some of those positions may be able to be reinstated based on those two specific criteria. Unfortunately, they're not something that we would be able to have an answer to today. We probably won't know until sometime in July or August when all the final hirings and all of the final choice numbers are in. But so the board knows I have asked Brian to look at it on our behalf to see if there is a way that we can reinstate some of those positions, frankly, if not all, but I think that all will be a difficult challenge. So with that said, that's just in response to the correspondence that you talked to. With that, we'll move to audience of citizens. If there's anybody who would like to address the Board of Education this evening, we welcome you to come on up. Please give us your name and where you reside, and also, if you could, please limit to 3 minutes. But there's not a whole big crowd here, so I might give you a few extra minutes, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Tenza. Good evening. My name is Eric Westman. And as the board has already alluded to, you're going to look into potentially reinstatement of some of these positions. But I do need to speak in regards to this. And it's very difficult, and I'm sorry I'm usually not this ultra-emotional guy, but I have 2 sons that are currently being seen by Mrs. Kluge in the elementary school. And I am very concerned in regards to what's going to happen. You guys asked us to go out there as a rallying cry. You need the funds, you need the backing and everything else. And I heard loud and clear that part of that would be the reinstatement for the positions. When I heard last Tuesday or after the referendum that there would be no reinstatements, I really felt betrayed by the board. And I apologize because I'm on the first name basis with a good chunk of you guys. But I really need the reinstatement of 2 key positions. The first one is I'd like to understand the decision as far as Mrs. Kluge, who's such a valuable asset to our elementary schools. She sees numerous students that need assistance. 2 of my sons happen to be benefiting from her attention and efforts. You've reduced the assistant vice principal role from Griswold and now a key behaviorist. I don't understand the rationale in reducing this role. Who's going to pick up the responsibility and help these poor kids? Because there's a lot of kids struggling out there. Kids nowadays are struggling at a much earlier age. We have many more kids experiencing issues, and there's more bullying taking place. These are the kids that could be headed for future ESS, which you are able to support. Maybe if items are addressed at an earlier time, it'll reduce the future ESS needs. There have been discussions of bringing it to the middle school level. These kids need a coping opportunity with support. She has gone above and beyond and is probably saving the school district much more than her compensation. I challenge you, how can you eliminate her role? Because I don't know what's going to happen next year. Second one, another key position that's being eliminated that's bothering me is the assistant principal position at the middle school. Just picture if she was not there this year. How much she helped, so much how she was able to enable people and be there for people. I was recently at a picnic, and there was a girl that basically was telling a story about her, how she was able to try and talk to the other assistant vice principal at McGee School, and she just couldn't get through to him. But when she reached out to the Mrs. Gish over here, she was able to hear her voice. There's a human side. And to hear that she could be replaced by video cameras or other security measures, that's not necessarily the only thing that the middle school needs. They need an assistant principal that's got a human side, that's willing to listen, that's willing to be there. Sal couldn't be here tonight. I understand because of the 50th anniversary. I've been here for 40 years. You're asking her to fill in. This is critical. Her role is desperately needed. I've lived in this town for over 40 years and have gone to these schools. I want to keep my kids following in my footsteps. I wanted to live in this town for its above-average school district. I'm embarrassed, though, that the elimination of positions that handle behavioral and disciplinary items are where we're eliminating. Look at Plainville Middle School, who we're talking about eliminating their sports to keep these positions. I'm a sports fan and have coached in excess of 20 years in this town. Sports are important to kids, believe me, I know. But as a parent, I'm willing to pay for the opportunity for these kids to be able to play. Whatever we can do to keep these positions. Pay to play, I'm shelling out over $1,000 a year for my 3 sons to play sports. I don't have a problem paying an activity fee. I've heard that from so many other parents. They don't have a problem with an activity fee if it's going to rescue some of these key positions. The sports will benefit some of the kids. The assistant principal and the behaviorist will benefit all of the kids. Please find a way to reinstate these positions. If you're looking for ideas, then please ask your parents who have many ideas on these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Board of Education? Sure, Jan, come on down. Thank you, Jan.
Imelda Modullo, 86 Devonshire Way. there's a couple of themes that I wanted to try and touch upon. One that has already been mentioned, and that is the decisions that have been made with the money that was able to be put back in from the referendum. As Eric mentioned, I also felt that I had the wool over my eyes. I did feel that we were fighting for the additional monies that were coming in. However, I don't believe that we were clearly told the stipulations with which that money was being given, meaning the amounts going to ESS and for sports. Those decisions had been made by the Board of Finance and by the Town Council. I don't know to what extent the Board of Education was able to have a say as to how that money should have been used. I'm not saying that ESS is not important. I think it's super important. However, maybe the additional monies for sports could have been reevaluated and determined to what extent the administrator at McGee, Ms. Gish, and Ms. Kluge, and the tech teacher, et cetera, could have been kept in versus sports. I also believe that it's a topic that should be open in the town, a pay-for-play scenario. There's a lot of families that would probably benefit from the administrators being in versus the sports staying in. I did fight for the sports as well, for them to stay in. But if I knew that the trade-off was the sports or the administrators that have been identified to lose their positions, I would have gone for the administrators, not for the sports, and have asked for an evaluation of a pay-for-play scenario. I don't understand that. I'm not sure if it's widely understood how important the personal connection is to these kids. You can't replace that with technology. You can't replace that with a different scenario. You can't expect the current staff, teachers, or counselors to pick up what is currently being put in place or what is currently in place. You can't expect a new person coming in and pick up where they left off. These are long relationships that have been built over time that are now going to be lost. The middle school is a tough place for students. The administrators do a lot. Ms. Gish does a lot. The other assistant principal does a lot. With one person leaving, how is this going to be maintained? I'll give an example. I was talking at the dinner table and mentioning to I call him my little guy, he's 10 years old, not really little. And I said, Marco, maybe you want to look at a different type of school going into for middle school. He's like, well, like what? I'm like, well, maybe a magnet school or something in the trade, something that's focused on engineering or science or math. He's really good at that. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, if he goes into the middle school and he does not have the support that he needs, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I don't want him to be in the scenario of other kids. And then he's like, but why, what's wrong with McGee? And I just said, oh, maybe there's something else you want to evaluate. My older son, who is graduating McGee, he's being promoted on Friday, he just said a side comment. He's like, oh, you mean because of the drama? So there's a lot that people do, that there's the personal relationship that besides the person, I'm really fighting for the position and something that needs to be looked at. If there are excess funds out there, why can't those be used for sports? Why does it have to go somewhere else? I am super disillusioned with the town council with the fact that they didn't come through in what they said they were going to be able to provide for the Board of Ed, and they continue to take monies and put them on the side and not relinquish them so that the Board of Ed can actually determine how those funds should be used. On the topic of the personal connection, I didn't read the Berlin Citizen this past week. I probably should have. But somebody else brought to our attention something that was mentioned that, and I'm just now getting to know the town council, the Board of Ed. I believe this board is a fine group of people. I want to read something that was in the Citizen because I truly feel that it was taken out of context. And if there is an opportunity to address this, it definitely should be addressed. So Mr. Tensa was quoted. Well, not quoted, but it was the statement that came. Tensa said he supports using the money that was set aside in this year's budget for the purpose of prepaying the ESS contract to instead install security cameras at McGee, which will help alleviate the strain of disciplinary issues at the school in the wake of the loss of an assistant principal. I ask you, how can a camera alleviate the disciplinary issues? When I was told that this is what was being said, I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure it was taken out of context. We know that reporters like to listen for their little tidbit, and they kind of run with it. It was put in the Berlin Citizen. It is now being said, oh, Mr. Tenza believes that a camera will replace Ms. Gish. I don't believe that was the intention of the comment. I hope you have the opportunity to be able to really state the facts of what the intention was. But regardless of what was said in the Berlin Citizen, we still have the issue that we're losing two very key professionals that help in our current unfortunate climate of mental health and all the disciplinary issues and the needs that some of our kids with higher anxiety need. So I'm going to stay hopeful that between now and the beginning of the year, something happens so that these two positions are reinstated and that the current incumbents are actually the ones that stay in the position versus somebody else coming in new. As part of the Parents Advisory Council, I will bring up Mr. Benigni when we meet the first time in the fall. How do we start opening up the dialogue around pay for play, if that's what it takes, if it's parking fees, looking at sponsorship, other opportunities that can help to raise the additional funds that we need to raise so that we're not in this kind of a situation come next year and losing these key positions. I didn't mention the technology teacher, but that's another favorite of mine where I'd love to be able to keep that at the schools. Technology is so important. To have somebody split their time, you're not going to get the same quality of education. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming in. John, before I get to you, I'd like to address a couple of things. First is, at no time did I say or advocate that video cameras would replace an administrator. I may have said that they will assist future administrators to determine what actually happened in an event, but I never said that it would replace an administrator, nor do I think any members of my board would say that I did. That was not something that came up. We did talk about using monies from this year's budget to buy cameras for not only the elementaries, but also for the middle school. We cannot roll money from one operational budget to the next, so any monies left over need to be on either supplies, capital expenditures such as cameras, gym floors, the things that we talked about earlier. The operational budget is the operational budget. Salaries and positions can never be in those dollars. Both Eric and Imelda, you suggested that you feel betrayed by the Board of Education, and I'm sorry that you feel that way. I also would say, and I think that the board would support that, never did we say that positions would be reinstated, all positions. We had a very lengthy, a $1.7 million overall cut to the budget. We did get $500,000 back. We listened to many, many people, and this is where we determined that these things, the ESS had probably the biggest impact on those funds that were reinstated. Had we been able to do that out of this year's funds, we'd be having a different conversation. But we also see the value and frankly, the life-saving effect it has on the students that are involved in that program. Eric, I agree with you. Perhaps if we can get social emotional much earlier on in the process, maybe there's less of a need for ESS in the future. And it is an issue that all school districts at this point in time are struggling with on how we get those resources to everybody that needs them. I know that Jamie Miller is constantly reminding us about how important it is that we get to these kids, and we are doing everything we can to try to get there. With that said, as I started just prior to audience of citizens, we have asked the superintendent to look at what we're going to have after all the hiring is done and what our choice grant really is going to look like with the positions that we've already transferred over to that in order to maintain them. to see how many dollars we'll have there. So rest assured, we have heard you, and we have wrestled with exactly the same feelings that you have. It is not an easy task to sit here as a group and try to have to make these decisions because we can't get everything that we want. I guess I'll close statements here. I don't know if anybody on the board wants to add to this. Otherwise, I'll go to Mr. Richards, who I know has another comment. Sure.
One of the things in this political environment that we have is hearsay, and this is the time for the board to be transparent. Tell us what's going on. Tell us where the additional funds are going. Be transparent. Don't let people take advantage of this as far as any of the parties and say, oh, well, the Board of Ed, they're secretive. They just want us one check for everything. They don't want to tell us what they can spend it on. They want to control what they spend it on. Let's stop that stuff. I didn't bring my 10-year-old son to talk to you guys because I was embarrassed that a 10-year-old child has to come and plead for Mrs. Kluge, who he's very distraught over, who he's crying about if he loses her. You guys know me, several of you. I'm crying because of what my kids are saying to me because they're afraid of losing Mrs. Kluge. They don't know what to do. One of my sons is being bullied. Yes, I'm a 6'2" guy. I was bullied a little bit as a kid, but how can I tell my little sons what to do, what to say, and everything else? Mrs. Kluge has coached them, has given them the mental fortitude to stand up for themselves a little bit, and basically telling them, just walk away, or talk to your teacher, that kind of stuff. Those little hints have been huge. I haven't had to see Mr. Pitzman once this year. That's huge. That's because Mrs. Kluge. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to ask Superintendent Benigni to address your question about the additional funds, okay? How they're going to be spent into the end of the year. I know that Mr. Richards probably has a question along the same lines because there's a Board of Finance meeting tomorrow night. But I think to be fair and transparent and in appreciation of your time here tonight is, look, we have always been a board that if you ask a question, we're going to tell you the answer. Since I've been sitting here on this board, that has been our policy. Mince no words about it. It's your education system, not ours. It's yours. So.
Can I say something? Sure. So, and to that end, I mean, I think, I won't speak for other people, but I have a fair degree of confidence that I am speaking what we sort of share as a collective belief, and that is, as 9 people of a board of that comprise the Board of Education, we're not here for the 9 of us. We're here for the collective community of families and children and so forth. And that sometimes means that we make decisions that as individuals we don't necessarily endorse individually. I sat up here during a meeting a couple of months ago and talking about the armed security guards as the only person in opposition to such, because I do believe, as a mental health provider myself, that kids do need more preventative than they do reactive. However, that said, there was a poll that went out to our community wherein the community voted in favor of armed guards in the school. So despite the fact that I am not personally in favor of that, I am an elected member of this board, and we are to do those things that the majority of our constituents are in favor of. So that's where we really have to struggle, because there are also, you know, as much as folks are coming now to talk out about pay to play, we did have a meeting, I don't remember when that was, last year, where people came out kind of in opposition to that. And people regularly I'm speaking very frankly here, but people regularly have said, we're heavy in administrators in Berlin. We have 18 administrators, and, comparable towns have fewer. So, we have to listen to all the voices, and we are put in some pretty difficult positions wherein we can't necessarily please all people all the time, but we do try to, through a real collective and concerted effort, address the overarching needs that are going to support our students' best interests overall. I'm not trying to make excuses, and I'm not trying to dance around things, but I am trying to be very honest in saying that people have opinions on both sides of every issue, and that is what makes this volunteer position quite challenging. But anyway, I thank you for coming out and speaking and sharing your heartfelt struggle as family members. Sorry, and one more thing. No, thanks. Sorry.
It concerns me greatly that you feel misled or weren't genuine about what the budget and what was going to be brought back. I think it needs to start with an understanding of if ESS was able to be funded with end-of-the-year funds, that would allow us $280,000 in the operational budget that could have been used for staffing, the same staffing that you're talking about. The assistant principal, the counselor, and the tech ed teacher could have been wrapped into that number. Once that was not an option, and our intentions were to pay for that, as we've done for 3 years, to pay for with end-of-year funds, if that was the case and those monies were brought back and we were sitting here this evening, it wouldn't be an issue because those positions would have been back in. And I think I speak for the whole board on that. So, yes, let me finish and then please, Eric. So that being said, the question can be, well, why didn't we go and look at the other 220,000 and put positions back in and not put sports back in and not put the stipends back in? Well, I think there also was an outcry of people about the sports and things too. There were other people who advocated for those. So that's what the huge shift was. So being where we're at with those funds from ESS now being essentially end of the year money, that cannot be rolled over to the following year except for in a reoccurring account, as Mr. Tenza spoke of. It can't be rolled over for staff. We have to zero out those accounts. So the thought is that our capital and building and site was zero for the year. The town did not fund us at all on those. So we have various items sitting in capital equipment, such as the Chromebooks. We typically, in 9th grade, every student gets a Chromebook and it lasts them 4 years through high school. We had no funding for the Chromebooks. So those $280,000 that's now end of the year funds that was gonna be used for ESS, it would be used for Chromebooks, the camera systems at the elementary, the camera management system at McGee. It also would be used for, as we agreed to, the end of the year funds. And there are some end of the year funds in the operational budget. And my position's been, it's been with the board, and to be very candid, to have a $43 million budget, to be around 1% at the end of a year of funds being left. In business, they say if you're at 2 or 3%, you did a good job. To be around 1% with end of the year funds, then those funds would then be used for the items that were originally in equipment and capital improvements that we no longer have. And so some of the other items we talked about, gym floors, the McGee gym floor has not been sanded down and refinished for 20 years. The paint in the gym is 50 years old in the McGee gym. The other gym floors have not been refinished. The concrete in front of the elementary schools and McGee is cracking and been in rough repair. And you may say, why would you do this versus bringing staff back? Because we cannot use those funds to bring staff back. That's the issue.
That's by statute.
Yeah. But what we can look at, and this is where the optimism, so as we're hiring staff, we look at what level we're hiring staff at. I hired a wonderful teacher this week who is brand new to education, but has worked in a preschool for 12 years. So she brings all that experience. The nice part is that we don't pay for that experience because it's not been as a certified teacher. So where we're hiring that teacher is not at a level that we may hire another teacher. So there's some cost savings there based on where we budget. So once the budget is complete and we know what staff are being hired, we know what choice tiers we're taking in, there may be funds available, which choice funds we can use for staffing to then reinstate some of the positions that were being spoken about this evening. And that's something that the board has already asked me to look at. So it's not to say that at this point, it's not in a good place. I can't disagree with you. But it's not to say we won't be in a better place in a month or a month, 6 weeks, when we have a better picture of what other funds are there to allocate towards staffing. I don't know if you have a question now, Eric. Well,
He's not there next year. Who is going to pick this up and be able to work with these kids? Not just give the 504 needs and the IEPs or whatever they're called, but basically work with the kids.
we may have to look at providing a part-time social work. We may have to look at other people in that position. But the reason why we looked at that position and even the tech position, because we have classrooms, such as just found out last week, we have a classroom at Hubbard that has 28 students now because of enrollment coming in. So I'm going to have a classroom with 28 students and with one teacher at 5th grade, which we've not had in my 20 years in Berlin. We're at a point, if you look back at the history of the cuts made, I think one of the comments that sticks with me that when speaking to the parent group is, we never were aware. If you look back, and I can show you, this is 30 teachers that have been cut over the last 6 years. There's nowhere left to cut. You may say there's nowhere left to cut. There's nowhere left to cut without changing class sizes, decreasing courses that are offered, eliminating exploratory block at McGee, where we'd have one exploratory versus two. You know, we're at that critical point. You know, if we received the 1.38 that we averaged for the last 6 years, we'd be at that point. So I think we need more than just Mrs. Kulke, to be honest with you. 2 superintendents removed. They put 1 counselor in at the elementary, and we're going to build the program, but we never seem to get the funding to build it. I think we need more than just Mrs. Kulke there. I think there's a greater need. So all I can say to you is I'm going to look at the funds. I'm going to report back to the board. If we can make something happen there, then we will look to do something. Yep.
I guess the concern I had was, along with Eric was saying, with keeping things down. When I got to speak to the town council on May 21st, I was pretty much under the assumption that, I guess, the assumption you guys had a few days before, that the ESS program would be paid for from the end of your funds, and that we wouldn't have to get rid of positions because of that, and that's why I decided to, talk about safety league sports and that type of thing. Because I was under the assumption the positions were probably going to be taken care of, shouldn't have to worry about that. And I guess my concern is this, that it kind of snuck up on everybody, as it seemed to have done here. How does that happen? I don't, for 3 years, you were able to fund it, not knowing that you were funding it the wrong way. And it's concerning to me that if that happened to all of us here, and we have a lot of big brains here that know what we're doing, it's what else do we really have to worry about? Because I'm with everybody else that we need to stop losing positions. We need to have to add positions.
Well, I think the start is having a 3.2 budget increase, which is the most we've had in 8 years. So that is a positive. But on the backside of that, we also have no capital equipment, no building in sight. So yes, they raised it, but we also lowered it on that end. But with that being said, I think the position of ESS and why not, I was under the assumption that, and I did operate under the assumption that if it was in the contractual year, right, we didn't pay ESS twice. It's definitely a risk with an auditor to pay for the same thing twice in one calendar year. You can't do that. It's prepaying. We know that. But paying in the same year, that's just the way we pay it. That was my interpretation. The previous superintendent did it. I mean, I wasn't the one who even did it last year. So, wasn't an issue. The new business manager, Mr. Cugno, we've had a mentor with 35 years, said it was okay also. So we were under the assumption to make this happen. When there started to be issues, or concerns about it, which were brought to our attention. I can state that I, talking to the board chair, contacted our attorney and asked them to reach out to one of their auditors that they're in contact with to look into it. And what was stated to me is, by an expert, it's up to the auditor's interpretation. So they could ding you or not ding you. So it was a maybe, maybe not situation. And then we also were shared with a previous auditor saying you can't do it.
We have the Board of Finance Vice Chair
Yeah,
saying
the
that
Board
we
of
can't.
Finance Vice Chair, who was an auditor, saying it can't be done. We had a meeting with the mayor, and I hope you're not, mayor, minutes before the town council meeting.
Minutes before the night that you spoke.
Minutes downstairs about it, saying just do it. But yet, and I'll speak for Matt for a moment, I hope he doesn't mind. Matt asked, can I give it to me in writing? I'll gladly do it. We'll definitely pay it like we pay. Just give me something in writing. Whoever told you we can do it. We've not received that. If we received it to this day in writing and we could do it, I think the board would be in total support of paying ESS at the end of the year. So it's not like we don't want to do it that way. It's not like we don't want to put the positions back in. Believe me, to lose that many staff, that's not natural attrition of students, and that's not the right direction to go. It's just not. I mean, we're losing programming, we're losing, and with that, when you're losing, it's difficult, as much as we're trying to move forward too, right, if you keep losing. So I don't know if I could answer any other questions about why and where and how.
So, Mike, you had said that you were caught by surprise on May 21st. You spoke, and you spoke on behalf of sports and so forth. And I remember, in fact, I leaned over and said thank you for you speaking. It is safe to say that that process caught the board by surprise as well the Friday before the Tuesday meeting. So think about where all that happened. And we were in discussions with the mayor literally up until 8 minutes after the town council meeting was supposed to start. But I was not willing to back down on the financial integrity of the board without something in writing. What I was said was, listen, I heard it from this person and that should be good enough for you. And I said, if you can get that for me in writing, we are happy to do that. But, and I still, to this day, don't have anything that says we can do that. Because all that does is set us up for something else worse down the line. So.
For me, what I want to know is what we can do now to really put the word out, at least work forward on this to stem the tide. You know, obviously we have the increase, which is nice, but what can we do to further increase that, to further at least let people know? I think what worked in the last couple of months is the fact that we got out there to really educate people. This is what we need. Like, this is the way towns grow. This is what happens. And I think that the next step forward, we have to do are take a look at, obviously this has to do with the town side, but take a look at what we're really spending money on and we change things that way. But also, like, this is where we need to spend our money. I want to fight the fight with everybody here to spend the money here in education, because this is what's going to help the town move forward. This is what's going to help, obviously, education move forward. And what can we do as citizens, whether we're here or we can go out and preach it to other people, like, what do you want us to do to try and make sure that the forefront gets, we need to not only stop losing teachers, administrators, and personnel and counselors, but we need to add, and we need to make their.
So, first let me thank you for that forward thinking, right? So there's very few people who come before us and ask, how do we move forward, as opposed to how do we address some things that have already happened? And that's not a knock on anybody in this room, because I think that everybody that has spoke to us has been very active, forthcoming, and not afraid to express their opinions. I think that we need to stay engaged. The board and your group needs to stay engaged. We will do that through all communication. I would encourage that we probably try to set up monthly or bi-monthly regular meetings where you're engaged with the Board of Education on a kind of a separate meeting schedule. representatives from the board is what I say, because if we have too many, then it's an official meeting, we can't go that route. But also, we're gonna maintain our communications. You know, I actually applaud Julia Dennis for getting those, making sure that our weekly column got into the paper with factual information, not hearsay. Now, this is what's going on. And I think that that had a big impact. So, Julie, I haven't done this publicly, but I want to thank you for...
She's not here.
She's not even here.
Yeah.
She went there, so we'll put in the next, yeah, she's getting the next column in. But in order for us, so for us, the work doesn't stop now. Yes, we have a budget approval, but now we're already talking about next year, right? So it starts immediately. We will take essentially July off, where we do an evaluation of ourselves, we do an evaluation of the superintendent, and then August is here, and we're talking about the next school year. And there's just a lot of work to be accomplished, but I think that we need to stay engaged, because you're right. It's your momentum and getting people out to vote the way the school system needs them to vote in order for us to grow. In essence, that's what we need to do. So I think that we as a board need to stay engaged with you. And I think that we've tried to do that. And it doesn't just stop now because the budget process is over, to your point.
Sorry, I want
Go
to
ahead,
add too.
Jamie.
Okay. Hey, Mike. So I think we have Board of Ed meetings every other week normally. We have a very low turnout, unfortunately. I think that we have to have a community that asks questions, and they come here and they hear what's going on, whether they watch it on the TV or read our agenda. It's difficult to, with just the 9 of us, to make sure that we're moving in a forward direction when it's like this. It honestly is, it's difficult. I know from a social worker point that, this is, social emotional for me, obviously, with your wife, that's really important, and like Matt said, that's my focus. But it's not just about coming to Board of Ed meetings, town council, the Board of Finance meetings. We need to know what's going on collectively in our community in order to know where we want to go moving forward. So yes, I think that, being engaged and having meetings and whatnot, but just come. And not everyone can come, but we all talk. We're a small community. So if one person can't come because of sports or whatnot, come, share the information. If someone wants to talk, I wish that we would have more people that would come and engage and ask questions. We don't have a lot of asking questions. We have a lot of complaints that you did this or you did that. Well, come first so that we can talk about it first. So that we, like Brian said, thankfully this year, we finally had an increase that's still not where it needs to be, but thankfully it's better than what it has been the last 2 years. And we love Heather and we love Claire, and we sure don't want to get rid of those positions, and I think we're trying to do what's best. But it's so hard when we have such few, I feel personally, invested community members. I mean, you know how many people go out and vote? It's so frustrating to want your children to, have all these experiences and have the social emotional growth and be where they need to be, and have 5 people come. It's super, annoying and frustrating. So we just have to show up and ask questions.
A very quick word.
I'll give yours right there.
I don't know, mine's on, look at that. Very, very quickly, I just want to say just thank you. Thank you for everyone who spoke today. I mean, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for the contributions to our town, because I just don't want to undercut for just at all what you were able to accomplish by turning around the vote. If that didn't happen, I can't even imagine the conversation we would be having here and what we'd be talking about cutting. I mean, I just don't even want to think about that. But this is just the beginning. I mean, we're turning the corner. And what's so important is staying together, staying engaged. And no, I mean, look, we got kids. We can't be coming to these long, boring meetings all the time. But I mean, just one person who comes could spread the word like you're doing is just so valuable that hopefully next year we're not making these talks about these terrible decisions that nobody wants to make, but we're talking about what are we adding to the district? What more opportunities are we adding? What more help we're adding to that? Because we should be having those conversations, and we can, because what all of you have started. So just really, really thank you.
I just want to echo that and also say that as much as sometimes the conversations are difficult or uncomfortable or whatnot, and what makes me personally most concerned is to hear anybody say that they feel betrayed or disillusioned by this board, because I think we have tried very hard, and Julia missed it, but you were acknowledged for getting that column out. Matt gave you a nice compliment. We've tried really hard to open the conversations with people, and I think that, to just echo what Jake just said, I think it was really the citizens, the families, people who got out there and shared information and really kind of got some momentum, I guess, behind folks getting out to vote for the referendum and so forth. I've lived in town for 11 years, and in my 11 years here, I think we're at a point where the Board of Ed actually hears more from folks, and folks are much more engaged in what's going on in the board than I ever recall. So in my time here, I know lots of people have lived here a lot longer than I have, but I'm grateful for that, and I think it actually holds a lot of hope for continuing those conversations and continuing to build momentum and move us forward. So I'm appreciative for citizens who are invested and paying attention and engaged and coming to meetings, not just ours, but town council and so forth, because I think this is a critical point. And our 3-point-something% is, I think, a testament to that.
So obviously the board is appreciative of all that you guys have done. We're not here today having these conversations, as difficult as these are, as someone has already said. Without the work that you've done, we'd be talking about significantly more reductions. If you think about where we were prior to the $500,000 reinstatement, because the next step to that was more cuts to that. I mean, we know that the hope was that the referendum would fail and it's too high, as they did last year, where we only asked for 1.9%, and they still cut a significant amount of dollars out of that. With that said, in order to, is there any? Go, John. 3 minutes.
I wish that tall guy had left this microphone up a little taller. I'm John Richards. I live at 239 Hawthorne Drive. I've served on this Board of Education for 14 years. I currently serve on the Board of Finance, and there's 3 things that I wanted to bring to the board this evening that's less emotional but nonetheless important. People have talked about transparency, and I shared a chart with the Board of Ed president and the superintendent where the dollar figure, which is all that we as a Board of Finance or members of the Town Council can share with the Board of Education, you had responded with what those reductions could be. I'm asking for an update of that based on the restoration of the $500,000 and what had been said may be reduced to what now is part of the reduction. And the information that I'm getting is out of the Citizen as well. I was going to wave it angrily and say, who puts this in the Citizen without sharing it with others who can make good decisions? There's no need for that. But the point would be that there are 9 positions that are listed in the Citizen. Those positions are on that chart. I don't know that those are exactly what the Board of Ed plans to do. I do know that there were some things said in that article as to what the board would do, but I don't know that those are, in fact, what the board is planning to do, though we have had extensive discussions about putting ESS back in the operational budget, that ESS, as I had invited you, Mr. Tenza, to come forward at our meeting and not to misrepresent it to the public, but to say, A, the Board of Ed is in favor of ESS, and B, the plan had been to take it from end-of-the-year funds. I was surprised by actions that have occurred as well, but I don't know that they're inappropriate. In other words, as you noted, we want to do this right because we don't want to lose funding to then not have the program. That would be even worse. Second point that has been mentioned, though, I want to put a little different twist on it. The budget for the Board of Education is a year-long process, whether this community realizes it or not. The budget is the actualization of the goals and aspirations that this board has for the educational system. That's what you gave us. Unfortunately, the way the bonding is in town, the way other things are in town, there's pressures for mill rate and businesses and other things, that there are competing interests for limited resources. But we need a dialogue that includes the town council, the Board of Finance, and I dare say, and have said, this Board of Education to talk about the future of our town. It is absolutely absurd to have discussions between the town council or the town council and the Board of Finance jointly that talks about 60% of the budget, which is the Board of Ed's, and not have Board of Ed representation. Absurd. I've suggested to the mayor that what we need to do is have a couple representatives from each, just as you do your ERC as a subset, have a couple representatives to start looking at what needs to change, because to get more money for education, the bonding has to come down. And if we, as a Board of Finance, don't push that discussion now, we're going to be in the same position we were this year. Oh my gosh, we've got to do the Burnham Street Bridge, and we have to bond it. The snow on Bonding Mountain increases the height. We have to find a way out. I'm not a proponent of Governor Lamont's debt diet, but we do know that in our town we need to do something, and that's what has to be brought down so that we can then have money for education. So the long-term discussion, trying to figure out what we value in our town, I appreciate those that are here. I have been asked to be the liaison to the Board of Education because they think I know something about your budget. I like to think I do, but it is a very complex and dynamic beast. Special education as just one element is a wild card. And as the superintendent has noted, we don't have unanticipated enrollments. We don't have a lot of things we used to do, and we don't allow a contingency, which, by the way, if you notice what the town council was suggesting to do, is coming from a separate contingency account of $300,000 that's outside of the fund balance. Where was that thing? And I'm glad that they have something on their side, but why wouldn't the concept make sense for the Board of Education as well? To not only have a 1% contingency on the operational side, but to allow funds to flow, if there were extra funds, into the non-lapsing account, otherwise known as the 1%, throw it over the fence and use it for capital in the following year. So it is my pledge to this Board of Education to try to continue with those discussions to say, how are we going to get out of this mess and improve ourselves? We talk about where the state is, and we talk about where we are, and we're not where we want to be. So how do you get the plane to come up to those clouds? I don't know the answer. 3.2 doesn't get us there. We're barely paralleling at 3%. So Board of Ed at 3 plus catch-up has to be the thought. It wasn't something that could be totally sold this year, but at least the base increased. But at what expense? Because of where bonding is and where we wound up with this budget for the Board of Ed operationally, there is, in fact, not one nickel, not even a dollar for capital. And your plans show many things that could be done with capital. The definition of capital is going to change. More things will have to be in the operational budget. Well, okay, let's get the definition set. If it's under 5,000, if it's under 15,000, whatever the threshold is, let's get the definition so that we can put it in the right place. And whatever is above the threshold, can we please get it in the capital plan so we can see it? That poor Willard basement for $110,000 that's been in the Board of Ed's budget the last 2 years, it's out there somewhere. I believe it's 2023 on the 10-year capital plan. How are we so misaligned? I don't have an answer, but I think we have to find a way to get the thoughts of where the board is headed and where the town is headed more in alignment so we can get there. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, John. One thing that you alluded to is the Town Council, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Education all meeting together. And I sit here today to say that at no point in this process has the Board of Education been invited to participate together. We've had meetings with the Board of Finance, multiple meetings, and you've been to all of our meetings relative to the budget. The Town Council, the entire Town Council has yet to take part in one of our meetings, nor have we been invited to any of their discussions until it's the day or so before a referendum. But Board of Education is happy to meet with any of the town councils in order to move and gain agreement or at least alignment with what our agenda is. So I thank you for bringing that up, and I think it's important that the public know that that's the case. Is there anybody else who'd like to address? Yes, sir.
Mrs. Kluge could be replaced by a part-time social worker. She's already a full-time person, and the kids can't get to see her because she's overwhelmed. So how would a part-time social worker help us?
You asked, what might you do to service the students in the short term without having the funds to fund Mrs. Kluge? And that's what I said, that we might have to see if a social worker could pick up some of the students part-time. It does not mean it solves the solution. It doesn't mean it's as good a solution as we had, but we're still looking for the funds to provide that position. So you said, how might you do that? And that's... If I had the funding, Eric, and if we look back, to be totally candid, if you look at the administrator's request in the budget, the elementary principals requested a full-time social worker at each building. So they recognize the need also. So it's not a question of not recognizing need. The question is finding the funding. And all I can say to you and try to assure you is that I'm going to do my best to try to find the funding.
Yes.
Can you just tell us, over the last, say, 5 years, how many times has the Board of Education, obviously the Board of Finance wasn't really in play at that point, how many times have all the players that go into the town, whether they sat down and need to put their budget together to say, like we were talking about before, to look forward into the future to say, okay, this is what the town does?
Since I've been on the board now, and I think that this is 4.5 years, 5, I don't know, 4.5, they all run together. I am yet to have a cooperative meeting with all of the powers that be. Prior to the Board of Finance, leading into the first referendum to where the town council would need to come up with a number, there would be a meeting between the mayor, the board president, and the superintendent, and they would essentially be told, here's what your number is going to look like. There wasn't, in my opinion, a whole lot of negotiation. I will say there was an exception to that. 3 years ago, my first year as the board chair, I met with the mayor, and we did negotiate a number that neither he was happy with, nor was I happy with, but it was a number that both could live with. And that's also the year that the state reduced the educational cost-sharing grant by about $600,000, and the town council in November told the Board of Education that they needed to find $400,000 of that $600,000 as year-end savings, which is the year that Superintendent Benigni came on in January and served dual roles for a number of months, as many other positions went unfilled. So, as I like to say, if the mayor's watching, he'll be upset with me, but is you gave me the money, you took the money back, and then you kept the money that came from the state. None of it came back to us. So that would be the only time I tell you that we sat at the table and negotiated a number that neither one of us were happy with, but, you know, kind of the definition of a compromise is you get to an agreement where neither is happy, but you both walk away kind of okay. That would be that situation. No, they were just basic meetings between just a few things, not public. Yeah. Anything else? I will close audience of citizens. I thank you all very much. I hope that over at least this board's history, we have proven ourselves that we do listen to what you have to say and try to act in the best interest of everybody. So we appreciate your words, your time to come here this evening. You know, it's already 9 o'clock, and greatly appreciate that you came out here. Moving along, we'll move to the consent agenda. Does anybody like to add or remove, discuss anything in the consent agenda at this time? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Motion by Jamie, second by Julia. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. What do we have, 8 here?
I think we have 7.
1, 2, 3, 7. 7. Motion carries 7-0. Next, we move to new business. First up is we have the appointment of Director of School Security, Safety, and Residency. I know that Mr. Smaltz has been sitting here for quite some time waiting for us to get to this point. Brian, I don't know if you'd like to address anything before we take action, but.
After a search that we had over 45 applicants for the security director position, and we interviewed 9 candidates. John Schmaltz came through as the strongest candidate for the position. John's been through a number of interviews, including those with myself, the board chair, the mayor, interviewing with the first administrative team, including the high school principal, the police chief, the lieutenant chief, Denise Parsons, our HR director, and then a final interview with all of the administrators in the district. So to say that he's been vetted, we've also looked at his references. We've reached out to fellow police officers that worked with actually Lieutenant Smoltz at the time, former Hartford former Hartford lieutenant, as well as a multitude of experience in the Hartford PD. His previous his life after being retired as a lieutenant from the Hartford Police Force was as a director of security of the University of Hartford. So he brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the district, and I know from speaking to him numerous times, he's eager to get started, and I look forward to working with him and drafting our security plan as he shared with us what he did at the University of Hartford over 10 years. I think one of the greatest accomplishments that he shared is that the University of Hartford wasn't always an armed security force. And Mr. Schmaltz brought in the arming of the security staff at the University of Hartford. So there's a keen awareness of what it takes to do that and to have armed security staff and to manage them. So I look forward to working with you, John.
As the board knows, last week we did call for a special session to interview John, and quite a few of you were unable to make that meeting due to previous commitments, but I know that Julia and Rich, myself, we were able to spend some pretty quality time with John. We enjoyed speaking with you, and at the end of that interview, all of us feel that you're the right man for the job. So without delaying this any further, I'll entertain a motion relative to your appointment. It's in your board pack.
Can I do it?
Go ahead, Rich.
Move that the Board of Education appoint John Schmaltz to the position of Director of School Security, Safety, and Residency effective July 1st, 2019.
I have a motion by Rich, second by Carrie. She beat you, Jamie. You'll have to wait for the next one. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. John, welcome aboard. We look forward to you building our security plan for the safety of our children. Thank you very much. Welcome. We do eventually get to it. Look, we even got him to smile. All right. Next up, we have facilities-related updates. Mr. Kugno, any updates for us?
I don't have anything in addition to say, other than what was reported in regard to the educational research committee earlier.
All right. Thank you, sir. C, I know that everybody's putting their head down because nobody wants to talk about the motion here, but State Healthy Food Certification Statement for July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Section 10-215F of the Connecticut General Statute requires that all Connecticut public school districts that are eligible to participate in the Healthy Food Certification take action to certify whether all food items sold to students will or will not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards published pursuant to Section 10-21E of the Connecticut General Statutes for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020, and whether to allow food and beverage exemptions. Who wants to read the motion? Julia.
I move that the Berlin Board of Education will participate in the optional healthy food certification program under Section 10-215F of the Connecticut General Statutes for the 2019-2020 school year, and certify that all food items offered for sale to students in schools under our jurisdiction will meet the Connecticut nutrition standards published pursuant to Section 10-215E of the Connecticut General Statutes. The board will exclude from certification food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutritional standards, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with the event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. The board will allow the sale to students of beverages not listed in Section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the beverages are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held.
I have a motion from Julia.
I'll second.
Second from Jamie. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item D, we have the Berlin Visiting Nurse Association Service Agreement with the Board of Education for July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. The annual agreement between the Berlin Board of Education and Berlin Visiting Nurse Association has been enclosed in your packet. I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve the agreement between the Berlin Board of Education and the Berlin Visiting Nurses Association for 2019-2020.
Motion by Julia. Second by Carrie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we will set the budget for 2019-2020. The Educational Resources Committee Administration will present information for finalizing the Board of Education operating budget for 2019-2020, including the recommended areas of reduction to meet the Town Council's approved level of funding. I think that we've talked about this quite a bit. So with that, I'll entertain a motion regarding the budget.
I move that the Board of Education adopt an operating budget for 2019-2020 in the amount of $44,977,844 as set by the Town Council.
Motion by Carrie,
Second.
second by Rich. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number F is a deposit into the non-lapsing account. The recommendation of administration and the Educational Resources Committee is that an amount not to exceed $355,000 in uncommitted funds be deposited into the board's non-lapsing fund to be used for renovations of the Blast Classroom at McGee, repair and maintenance of the gym floors at all schools, and the painting of the McGee main gym. Entertain a motion.
I move that the Town Council deposit an amount not to exceed $355,000 from account 001-35-3560-0-51000-00000, Board of Education Program 60 into account 500-35-3561-0-54000-01733, unexpended education funds for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019.
Motion by Carrie,
I'll second.
second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the policy review revision. It's a first reading of policy 3281-1, which is the advertising and promotional activities on school property. This is what Brian spoke to earlier this evening regarding the policy that was developed specifically at this point to talk about the book vending machines, but also for future advertising and promotional activities on school grounds. As stated here, a new policy has been created to work with community partners to support the creation and expansion of learning experiences for our students through the donation of funds. The new policy was reviewed by the Ad Hoc Committee for Policy, Review and Revision at its meeting earlier this evening, and since this is a first reading, no action is required. The second reading / approval will take place at the August 12th Board of Education meeting. We have an update on healthy foods. The language in sample 1 that was discussed at the May 28th Board of Education meeting has been sent to Shipman and Goodwin to be incorporated into the management plan and guidelines for students with food allergies. Open parentheses, 5141-25-R, administrative regulations, close parentheses. In addition, we asked for milk, eggs, fish, crustacean shellfish, wheat, soybean, and sesame to be identified as additional allergens. Since this language will be incorporated into our administrative regulations with no change to the policy 5141-25, it will not need board approval. Upon finalization, we will communicate the change to parents and children in grades PK through 5. So what that means is our existing policy regarding healthy foods and allergens is adequate and appropriate. This will be a regulation to that policy, which is administered by the superintendent and his staff. So we do not have to approve the policy change. It's simply in a regulation that will go into effect.
So even though that this will be updated in all of the schools' handbooks and sent home to parents, we feel once we get the policy, the regulation back, that we'd like to send a separate letter home to the parents. I'll send a letter home to the parents, letting them know now, prior to the start of the year, about foods that are allowed in the classroom, as the regulation states. And obviously share that with the board in one of the updates.
So my question is, and I apologize because I was not at our last meeting wherein this was probably discussed, but my understanding is that this means that foods coming in that would have been for the purpose of sharing among classmates, but what does that mean in terms of kids bringing food in for their own consumption? Because, you know, that's still a sort of a contamination problem, I guess is what I'm saying.
The two areas it really impacts is in the classroom, we're not allowing those foods into the classroom. If a student chooses to have any of these that we list as allergens in the cafeteria, that is still fine if they choose to eat that for their lunch. The other part that it's prohibiting is the bringing of food items into the classroom for celebrations, which will then eliminate, in the same way, eliminate the allergens in the classroom. So in the cafeteria, we're not allowing for items to be brought in for celebrations in the cafe either, as you saw the video prior.
But if
So,
kids bring in a peanut butter sandwich, because that's all.
not a problem eating that in the caf, not a problem at all. It just limits what's in the classroom, and it limits outside food for celebrations where it could be distributed to, you know, a multitude of students. So those are the big areas but obviously I'll share the regulation with the board before it goes out to parents.
The next two items involve unaffiliated administrators' contracts and personnel not covered by collective bargaining. These items will be discussed in executive session as they relate to personnel. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session, inviting just the superintendent, correct? Inviting just Superintendent Benigni.
I move that the board enter into executive session, inviting Superintendent Benigni to discuss unaffiliated administrators' contracts. Is that the first piece? Is there also a second piece? Personnel not covered by collective bargaining.
I have a motion from Carrie. Second from Tracy. All in favor? Aye. We are in executive session at 9:19. Where is Betty? Betty, we will have a motion coming out, but